They say love conquers all. But what if love was never the problem? What if the real challenge wasn't loving across cultures, but loving yourself enough to demand the world meet you where you stand? This is the story of Kemi and Joon-woo. She was Black American with Nigerian roots. He was Korean with a heart open enough to see beyond borders. Their love wasn't the problem. The problem was a world that insisted they choose between two identities when they wanted to honor both. This is their story. Seoul, Itaewon District, the most international neighborhood in Korea's capital. If Seoul is Korea's heartbeat, Itaewon is its exhale, where Korean culture meets the world, where mosques sit beside Buddhist temples, where you can get Nigerian jollof rice, Korean barbecue, and American burgers on the same street. This is where Kemi Adeyemi made her home. Kemi was 30 years old, born in Oakland, California to Nigerian immigrant parents. Her father, Dr. Oluyemide Adeyemi, was a professor of African studies. Her mother, Folasade, was a nurse who still cooked Nigerian food every Sunday and insisted Kemi learn Yoruba even though they lived in America. Kemi grew up navigating two worlds: Black American at school, Nigerian at home. Never quite fully either. Always translating between cultures. "You're not black enough for America," kids at school would say. "You talk proper. You're African. You're too American," relatives in Lagos would say. "You've forgotten where you come from." So Kemi learned to be both. And when she got her MBA from Howard University and a job offer from a tech startup in Seoul, she thought, why not add another identity to the collection? She'd been in Seoul for 2 years, working as a product manager at a Korean-American tech company. She'd learned Korean. Not perfectly, but well enough to argue with taxi drivers and order food without pointing at pictures. She'd made friends, joined a Black expat community in Seoul, started a YouTube channel documenting her experience as a Black woman in Korea. She called it Kemi in Korea, Black Girl Big World. And then she met Joon-woo. Lee Joon-woo was 32, a photographer and cultural documentarian. He'd spent 5 years traveling through Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, photographing communities that Korean media never covered. His work was simple: show Korea that the world was bigger and more beautiful than Korean entertainment made it seem. He just returned from 6 months in West Africa, splitting time between Nigeria and Burkina Faso. He documented everything from Lagos street fashion to traditional weaving in Ouagadougou. But what struck him most was the tension. The military standoff brewing between Nigeria and Burkina Faso's junta government over regional influence. Ordinary people caught between powers beyond their control. He was putting together an exhibition in Itaewon, Africa Unseen, beyond the single story. Kemi saw the poster at her favorite Nigerian restaurant. Photography exhibition featuring Nigeria and Burkina Faso. Opening Friday. Free admission. She almost didn't go. She'd been to enough Africa exhibitions in Seoul that were more stereotype than substance. Poverty, safaris, children with flies. But something made her go. The gallery was packed. Mostly Korean hipsters, a few expats, some West African students. And the photos. Kemi stopped breathing. These weren't poverty porn. This was Lagos as she remembered it from visiting her grandparents. Vibrant, chaotic, full of life and color and style. Women in Ankara print blazers checking their phones. Men in traditional agbada laughing over bottles of star beer. Street fashion that would put Paris to shame. And then the Burkina Faso series. Not war. Not violence, but people. Resilient people. A woman weaving at sunset. Children playing soccer with a ball made of plastic bags and twine. Families sharing meals despite everything. One photo stopped her cold. A Nigerian woman and a Burkinabe woman standing on opposite sides of a border checkpoint. Hands outstretched toward each other but not quite touching. The caption read, "Sisters separated by politics, connected by humanity." Beautiful, isn't it? Kemi turned. A Korean man stood beside her. Simple black shirt. Camera around his neck. Kind eyes. You took these, she asked. I did. I'm Joon-woo. Kemi. She looked back at the photo. This one. Where was it taken? Kano, Nigeria. Near the Burkina border region. I was there last month, just before the military tensions escalated. These two women are actually cousins, but the political rhetoric is trying to make them enemies. Kemi felt tears prick her eyes. My grandmother is Yoruba. She always says, politicians draw borders, but blood knows no boundaries. Joon-woo smiled. Your grandmother is wise. Would you like to see more? I have prints from Lagos that aren't in the exhibition. They talked for 3 hours. About Nigeria. About Korea. About what it means to document culture without exploiting it. About being in between. I spent 6 months in Africa, Joon-woo said. And Koreans asked me why I wasted time there. Go to Europe, they said. That's real culture. And I've been in Korea 2 years, Kemi said. And some Black Americans ask why I'd choose to live in a place where I face racism. Why did you? Joon-woo asked. Not judging. Genuinely curious. Because I'm tired of letting fear choose my life, Kemi said. And because I wanted to see if I could build a home in a place that wasn't built for me. Joon-woo nodded slowly. That's the bravest thing I've heard in a long time. That was the beginning. Falling in love across cultures is easy. Building a relationship across them. That's the real work. Kemi and Joon-woo didn't just date. They collaborated. Joon-woo wanted to expand his exhibition. Kemi had the connections in Seoul's Black expat community and the business savvy to turn art into impact. Together they created Bridges Not Borders, a multimedia project combining Joon-woo's photography with interviews Kemi conducted with African diaspora communities in Korea. Nigerian students talking about maintaining their identity while learning Korean. Korean adoptees finding connection with African culture. Mixed-race families navigating multiple identities. The project went viral. International news picked it up. Al Jazeera, BBC Africa, Korea Herald. But more importantly, it started conversations. Korean universities invited them to speak. The African Union's Seoul office wanted to collaborate. Kemi's YouTube channel exploded to over 200,000 subscribers. And through it all, they fell deeper in love. Joon-woo learned to cook Nigerian jollof rice. Not well. Kemi's mother nearly cried when she tasted it on FaceTime. Baby, I love you, Folisade said to Joon-woo. But this rice is an insult to my ancestors. Let me teach you properly. So Folisade taught Joon-woo, over video calls, how to make proper jollof. How to fry plantains without burning them. How to make egusi soup. And Joon-woo taught Kemi's family about Korean culture. How to bow properly. How to pour drinks for elders with 2 hands. How to read Korean. Kemi's younger brother, Marcus, took to Korean like he was born for it. Started learning the language, watching K-dramas, planning to visit. Your boyfriend is cooler than you, Marcus told Kemi. He's been to Nigeria more recently than you have. It was true. Kemi hadn't been back to Lagos in 4 years. Work, life, excuses. Come with me next time, Joon-woo suggested. I'm going back in 3 months. I want to document the aftermath of the Nigeria-Burkina Faso tensions. Show how ordinary people are working to maintain peace despite political theater. Kemi's heart raced. Go back to Nigeria. With Joon-woo. Meet her grandmother. Show him her father's village. Yes, she said. Let's go together. Lagos hit Kemi like a memory made physical. The heat. The noise. The organized chaos that looks like disorder to outsiders, but is actually a perfectly choreographed dance. Joon-woo loved it immediately. This is what Seoul was like 50 years ago, he said, watching traffic negotiate an intersection with no working light. Before we got too organized, too controlled. They stayed with Kemi's grandmother in Surulere. Mama Falyuk was 78, sharp as a knife, and immediately adopted Joon-woo as her own. This one has good energy, she told Kemi in Yoruba, not caring that Joon-woo was right there. Not like that last boyfriend who couldn't look me in the eye. Joon-woo photographed everything. Not the poverty. Not the exotic otherness. But the life. The humanity. A tailor shop where a woman made suits that rivaled anything in Milan. A tech startup in Yaba where young Nigerians were building apps that solved African problems. A church where traditional Yoruba drums mixed with contemporary gospel. And Kemi showed him her roots. They traveled to her father's village. Met cousins and aunts and uncles. Participated in a traditional ceremony. Joon-woo learned to tie a wrapper. The village children taught him Yoruba words and laughed at his pronunciation. "You fit here," Kemi's uncle told Joon-woo. "You have a good spirit. Not like some Oyinbo who come just to take photos and leave." Then they traveled north. To the border region Joon-woo had photographed before. The tension was real. Nigerian military checkpoints. News of Burkina Faso's junta making aggressive statements. But also, normal life continuing. Markets open. Families visiting across borders when they could. They interviewed people. Farmers who had family on both sides. Traders whose businesses depended on cross-border commerce. Young people who didn't care about military rhetoric. "Politicians want war," one Nigerian farmer told them. "But we want peace. My sister married a Burkinabe man. Am I supposed to hate my nephews now?" A Burkinabe woman in a border market said. "They draw lines on maps and tell us we're different. But we speak similar languages, eat similar food, share similar ancestors. The only difference is the flags." Kemi and Joon-woo documented it all. The resilience. The resistance to hate. The insistence on remaining connected despite politics. One night, sitting on Mama Falyak's veranda, drinking star beer and listening to music drift from a nearby club, Joon-woo turned to Kemi. "This feels right," he said. "Being here. With you. Documenting this. I know we come from different places, but it feels like we're building toward the same thing." "What's that?" Kemi asked. "A world where love doesn't have to choose between cultures. Where you can honor your Nigerian roots and your American identity and your life in Korea all at once. Where I can be Korean and love African culture and not have to explain myself." Kemi smiled. "Love isn't the problem." "No," Joon-woo agreed. "It never was." They returned to Seoul changed. Clearer about who they were together. But clarity doesn't mean easy. The Bridges Not Borders project was expanding. They'd secured funding from international organizations. Were planning exhibitions in multiple cities. Had opportunities most people dream of. But with visibility came scrutiny. Music darkened slightly. Online the comments started. Korean netizens. "Why is he wasting his talent on foreigners? Korea has culture too. Black Americans. She's over there dating Korean men. Doesn't she know about Korean anti-blackness? Nigerians. She's forgotten where she's from. Living in Korea, dating Koreans. Colonial mentality." The criticism came from all sides. Never about their work. Always about their love. Kemi's YouTube comment section became a battleground. "You're betraying black men. You're just a fetish to him. Korean men don't really love black women. You'll never be accepted in Korea. You've abandoned your culture." Joon-woo's photography forums were no better. "He's trying to be white by documenting Africa. This is cultural appropriation. He should focus on Korean issues. He's dating her to seem progressive." First they ignored it. Focus on the work. Focus on each other. But social media has a way of seeping into your real life. One day, Kemi's father called. "Kemi baby, I saw your latest video. You and Joon-woo in Lagos. Wasn't it great? Mama loved having us there." "She did." Her father paused. "But Kemi, I need to ask you something. Are you happy? Truly?" "Of course, Daddy." "Why would you ask that?" "Because I see the comments. I see what people are saying. And I worry that you're fighting battles you shouldn't have to fight. That loving this man means constantly defending your choices. Kemi's throat tightened. Daddy, when you married Mom, didn't Grandpa's family have issues? Because she was from a different ethnic group. They did, her father admitted. And didn't Mom's family worry she was marrying too educated, too westernized? Yes. But you loved each other anyway. And you taught me that love that requires you to shrink yourself isn't real love. I don't have to defend loving Joon-woo any more than Mom had to defend loving you. Her father was quiet. Then, you're right. And I'm proud of you. But baby, promise me something. Don't let the world make you forget that your love is valid just as it is. You don't owe anyone an explanation. That conversation changed something for Kemi. The next time someone commented, "You're betraying black women," she responded, "I am a black woman. I can't betray myself. Black womanhood is expansive enough to include me loving a Korean man. If your definition is too narrow to fit that, the problem isn't me." When someone told Joon-woo he was appropriating African culture, he said, "I'm documenting with permission, with collaboration, with respect. I pay people for their time. I let them approve images before I publish. I share profits from exhibitions. That's not appropriation. That's partnership." 2 years into their relationship, the question arose. Not if they would get married. But how? Joon-woo's parents were supportive. Cautiously. They'd met Kemi. Liked her. Appreciated that she was learning Korean, trying, respecting their culture. But they worried. Will you be happy in Korea long term? Joon-woo's mother asked Kemi over dinner one night. It's not easy being different here. Even after years. It's not easy being different anywhere, Kemi said gently. I was different in America too. Too Nigerian for Black Americans. Too American for Nigerians. At least in Korea, I'm building something new. With your son, we get to define what our life looks like. Joon-woo's father nodded slowly. That's a good answer. My son is lucky to have found someone who thinks like this. But the wedding itself, that became the real negotiation. I want a traditional Yoruba wedding, Kemi said. Asoebi, dancing. My grandmother blessing us. I want a Korean ceremony, Joon-woo said. Baby, traditional dress. My parents officially welcoming you into the family. They looked at each other. So we do both, they said simultaneously. And they did. The wedding was a 3-day celebration. Day 1. Korean traditional ceremony in Seoul. Kemi in a hanbok. Joon-woo in traditional dress. Paebik ceremony where Kemi formally met Joon-woo's extended family. She bowed. They gave her jujubes and chestnuts, symbols of future children. His grandmother cried and said, "Welcome to our family, daughter." Day 2, travel day. Half the wedding party flew to Lagos. Day 3. Traditional Yoruba engagement ceremony in Lagos. Kemi in full traditional attire. Ankara and geli. Gold jewelry passed down through generations. Joon-woo in agbada that Mama Folyak personally selected. He prostrated before Kemi's father to ask for permission to marry her. My daughter is brilliant, Dr. Adeyemi said. She speaks 3 languages, has built a life across continents, and has never let anyone tell her who she should be. Can you handle being married to someone that strong? I don't want to handle her, Joon-woo said. I want to match her. She makes me braver. I hope to do the same for her. Dr. Adeyemi smiled. Then you have my blessing. The celebration was everything. Korean guests learning to dance to Afrobeats. Nigerian aunties teaching Korean grandmothers how to tie geli. Kemi's brother Marcus bonding with Joon-woo's younger sister over K-pop and Afrobeats fusion. 2 families, 2 cultures, 1 love. Mama Folyak pulled Kemi aside during the reception. This is how it should be, she said. Not choosing. Honoring both. The world wants us to pick sides. But you and Joon-woo are showing them there are more than 2 sides to pick from. That night, Kemi and Joon-woo stood on the balcony of their Lagos hotel, watching the city glow. We did it, Kemi said. We did, Joon-woo agreed. Though I'm exhausted. Kemi laughed. Worth it. Every second. He pulled her close. You know what I realized? What? Love was never the problem. The problem was everyone else's narrow imagination about what love should look like. But we didn't let their imagination limit ours. 3 years into their marriage, Kemi and Joon-woo's work had evolved. Bridges Not Borders became a non-profit organization. They secured grants, hired staff, expanded to document diaspora communities across Asia. They created mentorship programs, connecting African students in Korea with professional opportunities, teaching Korean students about African cultures beyond stereotypes. Their work was featured in museums, universities, international conferences, but more importantly, they changed individual lives. A Nigerian student wrote, "Because of your work, I felt less alone in Seoul. Found community. I found pride in my identity." A Korean teenager wrote, "I used to think Africa was just one place of poverty. Your photos showed me the truth. Now I'm studying African literature. Thank you." A mixed-race child wrote, "My mom is black. My dad is Korean. Kids at school say I'm confused. But seeing you and Joon-woo shows me I'm not confused. I'm complete." That last letter made Kemi cry. "We're doing more than documenting culture," she told Joon-woo. "We're giving people permission to exist fully." They also started a family. Daughter, Uli, a name combining Yoruba and Korean. She had Kemi's eyes and Joon-woo's nose. Kemi's brown skin and Joon-woo's Korean features. She was perfect. "What language will you teach her?" Joon-woo's mother asked. "All of them," Kemi said. "English, Korean, Yoruba. She'll code switch like a boss." "What culture will she be?" Kemi's mother asked on FaceTime. "All of them," Joon-woo said. "She'll be Korean-American Nigerian. She'll be Adeli. She'll be whoever she decides to be." Raising a multiracial, multicultural child in Seoul wasn't easy. Stares on the subway. Questions in the park. But Kemi and Joon-woo were prepared. When someone asked Adeli, "What are you?" they taught her to say, "I'm me. I'm Korean and American and Nigerian. I'm all of it." When Korean kids at daycare said she looked different, Adeli said, "I look like my mom and my dad. That's pretty cool." One day, Adeli came home crying. 5 years old. "A kid at school said I'm not real Korean," she sobbed. Kemi knelt down, looked her daughter in the eyes. "Baby, you are real Korean. You're also real American. Real Nigerian. You're real everything you are. Nobody gets to tell you what's real about your identity except you." "But why do people care so much?" Lee asked. Joon-woo sat beside them. "Because they're scared. People who fit neatly in boxes are scared of people who don't. But you know what? The world is changing. You're part of that change. Kids like you are showing everyone that boxes are too small for real people." Lee smiled. "I like being too big for boxes." 5 years into their marriage. 7 years since they met at that exhibition in Itaewon. Kemi and Joon-woo sat for an interview. A documentary crew was making a film about their work and their love story. "So," the interviewer asked, "what do you want people to understand about interracial, intercultural relationships?" Kemi and Joon-woo looked at each other. "Love isn't the problem," Kemi said. "It never was. The problem is a world that insists we choose between identities instead of honoring all of them. The problem," Joon-woo added, "is people who think love should look one way. That Korean love looks like Korean drama. That black love looks like a specific aesthetic. But real love looks like whatever two people build together." "Do you face challenges because you're interracial?" the interviewer asked. "Yes," they said together. "But not from each other," Kemi clarified. "From the world around us. From people who project their fears onto our relationship. From systems that weren't built for people like us." "But here's the thing," Joon-woo said. "We're not asking for permission anymore. We're not waiting for the world to be ready. We're living fully now. And the more we do, the more space we create for others." The interviewer smiled. What would you tell a young couple considering an interracial relationship? Especially in Korea. Kemi thought for a moment. I'd say, love isn't the problem. If you love each other, truly respect each other's cultures, and are willing to do the work of building something new together, the love part is actually the easy part. The hard part is standing firm when the world tells you to shrink. But if you can do that, if you can love loudly, live fully, and refuse to let anyone's narrow imagination limit yours, you'll be fine. Better than fine. You'll be free. And, Joon-woo added with a smile, learn to cook each other's food. Love languages include jollof rice and kimchi. The interview ended. The crew packed up. Kemi and Joon-woo walked home through Itaewon, past the place where they first met, past the Nigerian restaurant, past the Korean barbecue shop. Adeli ran ahead, speaking Korean to the store owner, then switching to English with a tourist, then trying Yoruba words her grandmother taught her over video chat. Look at her, Kemi said. She doesn't even know she's supposed to choose. Good, Joon-woo said. She shouldn't have to. They walked home, to their apartment filled with Korean furniture and African art, where kimchi sat next to hot sauce in the fridge, where Yoruba played on the speaker while Joon-woo edited photos on his computer. A home that didn't choose. A home that honored everything. Music swells, fusion of Korean and African sounds. Because love was never the problem. The problem was always everyone else's fear of possibility. But Kemi and Joon-woo chose possibility, chose expansion, chose both. And in doing so, they showed the world something powerful. You don't have to choose between cultures to build a life. You just have to be brave enough to honor them all.